Israel has responded with military action against Iran, and we confirm at least that there have been strikes inside the Islamic Republic of Iran. There have been other reports; those have yet to be confirmed about strikes on Iranian targets, potentially inside Syria as well as Iraq. But we know that there have been strikes inside Iran. One very close to the I'd maybe call it infamous Natanz nuclear plant. Now, this is a plant that you may have heard the name before because if you've heard the Iranian nuclear deal, the JCPOA, this has been the nuclear plant where there's been so much focus on whether even when the JCPOA, that joint plan of cooperation, was put in place between the United States and the P5+1, so the permanent 5 members of the Security Council plus Germany and Iran, about monitoring their nuclear program. Well, there were always issues about Natanz. And why is that an issue? Well, Israel might have hit Natanz, the nuclear base. Iran is saying that there's no nuclear issues that they're dealing with right now, but they've had to make that statement to their citizens, which means this strike was very close to Natanz. You've also got a huge military base there, an airfield. So it may have been a strike on Iran's airfield. We are continuing to get more information on today's broadcast. We do know now from Secretary of State Antony Blinken, he has made remarks this morning already. He said a few things. The U.S. got some notice before this attack occurred. It looks like this was all done by either drones or missiles or some projectiles. It does look like there were actually manned aircraft, but there certainly were, of course, military warheads and military aircraft, even if unmanned, flying over what would be other countries' airspace. And so we're still, again, would confirm in many of those countries, the U.S. has got bases as well, and there's activity. So, again, a surprise attack because the U.S. was only given warning, and that could have just been minutes before this attack occurred. It could have been a little bit longer, so the U.S. knew not to shoot down these whatever Israel utilized to get the explosive devices there. These unmanned drones are very popular now. That's what Iran used for smaller attacks and more targeted attacks, as well as ballistic missiles. You don't have to necessarily, this is a pretty close region of the world. That being said, the U.S. also has tried to make clear, and this is interesting, that it had no role in this with Iran, with Israel in this attack on Iran. Now, I would understand why the U.S. maybe publicly would want to make that statement. So what we have to figure out is, and what we'll try to break down over really the next days, and even when we talk to you next week, is how involved was the United States, and where will the United States be over the weekend and by Monday? Are they going to be condemning Israel? Because, folks, this is the time, this is the moment where we have got to stand with our ally, Israel. Jeff, we're just starting to get details from this as it happened overnight in the Middle East, and people were, I think it was evening here in the United States about this response from Israel. But what we do know now from the United States is that Israel had to go it alone here. Maybe no one got in their way. No allies actually got physically in their way. But they did not, at least the U.S., was coming out, they're not standing with Israel. They're not saying, we support these actions. They're saying, actually, we had some knowledge of them right before, and that they hope the tensions will go down.
Yes, Jordan, the way this is proceeding is fascinating, and it's all very groundbreaking. So as you point out, in terms of the geopolitics of this, the fact that Iran is now launched from its own territory into Israel's territory, and of course, I'll note that, of course, Iran seemed to, nothing hit, but seemed to be launching against population areas. Israel's response, and again, Israel hasn't even taken official credit for this, but the world is assuming it's Israel. Israel's response has been directed at very strategic, tactical, military targets. Again, showing the difference between the two nations. One wants genocide, and one is just trying to live and defend itself. And as it defends itself, defends the West. That's the first part. The second, on the ground in Jerusalem, or just in Israel, it's very interesting. The home front command is a very important component of daily life in Israel. Obviously, since October 7th, it's become to the fore. And so there's billboards and ads, constantly information about what home front command is telling Israelis to do. The home front command basically released guidance that Israelis should take shelter or be careful not long ago, and basically created a situation where life seemed to be normal again, within the context of post-October 7th normal. And so all of this, people are saying, might have been strategically or tactically to not alert the other side, not Iran, that an attack was so imminent, that maybe if it's going to come later. Even the home front told people to act as though it's normal. So this has been a fascinating, very sort of sub-rosa, very under-the-table operation that took the world by surprise.
Will, just to kind of explain to people, I know we're going to put a map up as well of where these attacks were centered, where they focus so far. What we know and what's been confirmed inside Iran is, near a nuclear facility that a lot of people have heard of called Natanz, which is also very close to a major Iranian military airbase.
Yeah, so the explosions were reported by Iran actually on the ground there near Isfahan, which is the central part of Iran. And the way that it's being reported by them obviously is a little bit different than the media, the Western media, right? There doesn't appear to be any injuries or casualties, which is very interesting in how this whole thing is escalating, right? Because like you guys pointed out earlier, the unprecedented attacks last week and on Saturday that Iran launched, 300 plus up to maybe 1,000 missiles or drones over Israel were over the populated areas. So this is a very targeted and very direct attack in Iran from Israel for the first time. And there are reports that are unconfirmed all over there were some in northern Iran and by the nuclear facilities, which are kind of scattered. I believe there's 7 total areas. And so there were a lot of reports about up to 7 different areas within Iran where the nuclear or military facilities are located. But right now, we know that the only area that has been confirmed that has taken damage, if you will, is Isfahan there in central Iran, which is a key area of their military operations.
We will now see how the world begins to respond. As I told you, the United States response from our Secretary of State has been so far. We got some warning of the attack. We did not assist in the attack or plan in the attack. Of course, they didn't try to stop it or shoot down anything that was fired out of Israel, and neither did the other countries that those aerial objects. Now, depending on what was fired, that may have been more difficult or nearly impossible with no notice. But we're going to get more information here. And will Iran actually strike back? I mean, is this going to continue or escalate a conflict?